Hello, and welcome to another VMK from the Game Development Series, brought to you by MaticKnows.com. If you enjoy my videos and would like to support my website, you can do so by going to my website at www.MaticKnows.com and either donating some money using the PayPal icon here, or clicking on any of the ads from Google. In this video, I'll be adding the ability to crouch in the game. So currently we're developing this sort of first-person shooter game engine, and in the previous video we added the ability to jump. Well, to sort of build upon that previous video, we're now going to also add the ability to crouch. To do this, let's open up the player class and see what we have here. We have our constructor, destructor, our set eye level, our jump, and our update. Well, to add the ability to crouch, we need a new function here, so we're going to add that in right now. It's going to be called crouch, and it's going to take in the time as well as a crouch state here. Now, we haven't defined this crouch state yet, so let's do that right away. So with the crouch state, you can either be crouching down or crouching up. So we need to know which of these transitions the user is trying to do. The other thing we need to add here is some additional player states. So right after player state jump, we're going to add the following. We're going to have player state crouch and player state get up. So when we request a crouch down, the player state is going to go into crouch. And when we request a crouch up, then the player state is going to go into get up. And you'll see in the code in a minute how these two are linked together. Now, just like with the jump up here, we needed some variables to store the jump state. Well, we need the same sort of thing for the crouch as well. So let's add those. We need to know the crouch start time, the maximum depth of a crouch, as well as crouch B value and crouch M value. These two values down here are going to be used to calculate the line that we're going to travel along when we're crouching, both up and down. And you'll see how we use this in a minute. Okay, so those are the modifications we need to do to player.h. Now, we also should go into the OpenGL game engine and make some modifications here as well. So under handle keyboard, at the bottom here, when we press the space bar, we're going to start a jump. Well, we also now will add an extra key here so that when you press the letter C, you'll be doing a crouch. Now, the way the code is structured here, we see if we press the letter C, so if this is true, then we're going to call this function called crouch, which we just defined above, and we're passing in the time, and you see here we're passing in that we're going to be crouching down. When this is false, meaning the user let go of the C key, then we call the crouch function again, but this time we call crouch up here as the state we want to transition to. So the user has to press and hold the letter C for the user to crouch down, and then when you release the letter C, you'll start getting up. There is a sort of time delay that is played into the game here, so that you don't crouch immediately. It takes a little bit of time for your eye level to move down as well as to return back up to its original position. So that's why we need these two extra states here. So let's go into the player.cpp and actually write this function for crouch now. I'll put it right underneath the jump. It's a little bit more complicated than what we had here for the jump because there is a couple extra state transitions we need to take care of. So if we see here, if the player state is walking and the player chooses to crouch down, then we'll go into this first section. Or if the player is getting up and then the player chooses to press down again to crouch down, then they'll go into here as well. So in other words, you can crouch from two different states. You can either crouch from standing or crouch while you're in the transition of getting up. When you're getting up, there's only one state transition we have to worry about, and that's this one here. So if this player state is in crouch mode, meaning they're crouching, then if you press to get back up, then we put yourself into getting up, and then we handle this case here. These are the sort of three cases you have to take care of. Now let's look at them in a little bit more detail. If the user requests to crouch down, what we first do is we change the player's state from whatever it was to be crouching. We get our B factor here, which is the standard factor used in an equation of a two-dimensional line, and then we use that whenever we go and update our crouch state. And that's going to be done down here, and I'll talk about this in a second. If, however, we are already crouching and we want to stand up, then we go into here. In that case, we change our state transition to be getting up, and then we calculate the B factor again. Now notice that when we calculate the B factor here, the only difference is this minus sign. Before we had a plus sign up here, but we changed it to be a minus sign because we're changing the direction that we're crouching. So here we're going down, and here we're coming up. And again, the equation here comes from the standard equation of a line, two-dimensional line. If you want more details on that, you can go into the mathematics VMK section on my website to get a little bit more detail on that. Okay, so that's what we do when we go and crouch, and to actually update what happens on the screen, we need to handle an extra case now in here. So in the update, we now have two new cases to add. We have the case of when we're crouching down as well as when we're getting up. So when we're crouching down, what we do is we check to see whether we've fully crouched down or whether we're in the transition of crouching down. So if this is true, in other words, we've reached the absolute maximum of our crouch depth, then we go and set our eye level to be eye level minus our crouch depth. The X and Z values do not get changed. However, if we haven't reached our maximum crouch depth, then we need to calculate what is our current crouch value. And our crouch value is defined by Y here, and we calculated it using this formula here, which is the standard Y equals mx plus b formula. And then after we get this value, we need to do this extra check here, because if our computers happen to be running slowly, it is possible that the player will crouch down beyond the absolute maximum crouch depth. So to prevent that from happening, we have to do this check. And if they are down below the maximum crouch depth, then we just saturate the Y value to be the maximum crouch depth, which is this value here, and then we set it using the set command as well. And again, our X and our Z value don't get changed. We only change our Y, which is the height above the ground. Now with our getting up, it's sort of the reverse of what we do here for crouching down. So in getting up, we check to see whether we're standing up fully. And we're fully standing up whenever our Y value is equal to the eye level. And if it's greater than the eye level, then that means we have reached our maximum. So we just set our current eye level to be the eye level that we've set here. And we also need to change the state here to be now walking. We need to do this so that it will allow us to then crouch down a second time if we need to. You'll notice up here, when we reach the maximum crouch depth, we don't set anything for our crouch state. That's because we set the crouch state up here whenever we started crouching. So when we're getting up, you'll notice here we calculate the Y value, which is the height above the ground. And again, same formula, Y equals mx plus b. We need to check to see if we're above the maximum eye level. If we are, then we saturate it to be the maximum eye level, and we set our state to be walking to allow us to crouch down a second time if we need to. And again, we just set our X position, our Z position, and our Y position, which we calculate above. So that's all the math that has to get taken care of for us. Now the only other thing we need to change, or add I guess I should say, is into our constructor. And in here we need to define our maximum values and our common values for our crouch parameters. Now this value here should never be more than the eye level. And I'll explain this in a second when I go and run the demo. You'll see what happens when this is greater than the eye level. We set a value here for m, and m is the speed that we crouch at. We can sort of control how quickly the player is able to crouch down as well as get up. So if we make this number bigger, then you'll be crouching down faster. So let's try to build this and try out our crouching. Okay, built okay. Let's give it a run. Okay, so moving around, jumping. Now pressing the letter C, you notice I crouch down and I crouch below the ground. So now you'll see that the ground disappears because we're actually sitting below it, and the way that the ground is drawn, it's only rendered from the one side. So when we look at it from below, we don't see the ground anymore. So it's a pretty easy fix to make. All we need to do is either change the maximum crouch depth here or change the eye level that we're set at for this player. I'm going to change the eye level because I think 0.1 is what we're using right now, which is kind of small. So let's go into, it's in the game engine, and it's under initialize. Yeah, right here we set it to 0.1, so I'm just going to change it to 0.5 so that we have a little bit more room to crouch down in. So 0.5 is greater than 0.4, so everything should be working fine now. And let's run this. Okay, so now when we crouch, you see we crouch down and we still see the ground below us. While we're crouched, we can be moving, but you'll notice I cannot jump when I'm crouched. And as I'm crouching down, I can release the crouch button and I don't fully crouch all the way down, and I come straight back up. Same thing when I'm down, I can release and then press it again. You'll notice he transitions from mid-crouching to crouching all the way down, or vice versa. So all that's handled by the logic that we put into our crouch class. So that's how you add the crouching ability. You notice that because of the framework we've set up, it's very easy now to add things into our player class. It only took a couple lines of code to add the ability to crouch. This is a short tutorial on crouching, but I wanted to show you the difference between having an event that requires a key press, like a jump, and having an event that requires a key press and hold. So with the crouch, you need to press and hold to have the event occur, whereas a jump, you just had to press it and you didn't have to hold the space bar down. So you notice that the difference between those two events were how we handled it. With just a key press, we just needed the time that the event happened at, and then we could calculate the state transitions for where we are in 3D space. With the crouch, it got a little bit more complicated because we needed this extra crouch state. Now we had to take care of things like, are we crouching down, are we coming back up, which way are we transitioning, things like that. So press and hold events are a little bit more complicated to work out. That's it for this tutorial. Come back again for the next one where we'll be adding objects into our scene.